The views and opinions expressed in The Fact Is with Hollis Grant are those of Hollis Grant and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Droids Canada Network. Droids Canada Network does not take responsibility for any content or position produced by Hollis Grant and his show. Listener discretion is advised.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Fact Is. I'm your host, Hollis Grant, and today we are going to be talking about hate speech in Canada, and the new laws coming into place, Bill C-36. Bill C-36 is aimed at curbing online hate and stopping hatred of any form to be communicated online. So the particular act was introduced by David Lametti of the Liberal Party, a notorious Liberal Party, known for using their words in their vilification of their enemies, putting into place a system that will prevent and be able to limit what people can say online. Now, one particular section in the Act, so Section 319 of the Act, is amended by adding the following after subsection 7. So, fear of hate propaganda, offense, or hate crime. A person may, with the Attorney General's consent, lay in information before a provincial court judge if the person fears on reasonable grounds that another person will commit an offense motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate based on race, national or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or any other similar factor. The statement here is if the person fears on reasonable grounds that another person will commit an offense has not been committed but will be committed. This is a future thought crime. This is a crime that hasn't occurred, but you feel threatened, and you feel that somebody might say something based on the above. You can take that to court, and the fines that are being implemented is up to $50,000. So $50,000 for a future crime that has not been committed. It's almost like we're getting into Minority Report with Tom Cruise when they had the future thought police and they were sent to stop the crime that potentially could have happened in the next 5 or 10 seconds and arrested someone that had not done the crime. It's very interesting that we're getting to this place in Canada, knowing that we're coming up to the end of a 4-year Liberal government. Every 4 years there is an election. We are looking at a potential call for election in the summer. And we have already some of these laws and bills that have been changed and ratified to silence speech, to silence online speech, to silence people from talking by implementing fines, all this coming to an election. Now, the Liberal government did try to introduce and change some hate speech and introduce some bills to change around 2013, but that was repealed about online hate speech in the Human Rights Act. Now, this bill, C-36, is changing that. So the Canadian Human Rights Act is going to be replaced by the following. So, orders regarding discriminatory practices. A discriminatory practice, as described in sections 5 to 14.1, may be the subject of a complaint under Part 3, and anyone found to be engaging or to have engaged in a discriminatory practice may be subject to an order as provided for in section 53 or 53.1. You can take a look at those particular sections in further detail. Now, the next section here is section 13. The Act is amended by adding the following after section 12, communication of hate speech. it is a discriminatory practice to communicate or cause to be communicated hate speech by means of the internet or other means of telecommunication in a context in which the hate speech is likely to foment detestation or vilification of an individual or group of individuals on the basis of a prohibited grounds of discrimination. Watch what you say on the internet, because your posts, your memes will have hate speech and vilification of an individual or a group, all in time for the upcoming election. Will news agencies be a part of this? No, they are exempt and can be exempt from sharing. If they distribute, that's a different situation, but they can share the story or share the meme without having to face the fine. But you, common individual citizen, will face up to $50,000. The Criminal Code and the Youth Criminal Justice Act also being amended. It's making it easier for victims of hate speech to file complaints against those publishing offensive material on the internet. The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, David Lametti, said the move is designed to, quote, target the most egregious and clear forms of hate speech that can lead to discrimination and violence. Will Black Lives Matter be considered hate speech? Will the new Indian movement that's starting out west in British Columbia that is calling for Canadians to give back all lands and to leave North America, will that be considered hate speech? Only time will tell. Or will it just be attacks on the Liberal candidates and Liberals in Canada coming up to the federal election? There's some interesting characters that will be running. There's some interesting scandals that have occurred that may not be brought up. I'll bring up the MP that exposed himself in front of the House of Commons, showing his penis, apologized and said, "It won't happen again. I don't know how it happened," only to be found less than 2 months later to be urinating on camera in his office. Said MP will most likely run again. There's also famous Liberal MPs in Milton that have used constant attacks on his political candidates and have accused others of hate speech. How will that go ahead in the run-up to the federal election? How will this show fare with the new hate speech laws or vilification? The proposed bill says that offensive language and content that, quote, discredits, humiliates, hurts, or offends others will not necessarily automatically be considered hate speech. Instead, hatred is defined more specifically in the bill as, quote, an emotion that involves detestation or vilification and that is stronger than dislike or disdain. Lametti told reporters, the CBC News, the mouthpiece of the Liberal Party, that the update will not target simple expressions of dislike or disdain that pepper everyday discourse, especially online. Private conversations are also exempt from the proposed changes at this time. While posting hate speech online would not be considered a criminal offence under the proposed update, it would be a violation of Canada's Human Rights Act, Canada's found responsible for sharing offensive material that is likely